चरणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशताय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे सर्वशास्त्रांची पीयूष सर्ववेदैक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांत रत्नाढ्य सर्वलोकैक त्रिप्रद सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद्भागवत प्रभो कलिध्वांतोदितादित्य श्रीकृष्ण परिवर्तिता परमानंद पाठाय प्रेमवर्षक्षरायते सर्वदा सर्वसेव्याय श्रीकृष्णाय नमस्तु मे मदेक बंधो मत्संगीन मद्गुरो मन्महाधना मन्निस्तारक मद्भाग्य मदानंद नमस्तुते साधु साधुतादायिन अतिनीचोच्यताकर आनम च कदाचिन् मां प्रेम्णा हृत्कण्ठयोस्फुर ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur concludes his explanation of Chatushloki uh, by saying this: "Iyam Vishwajanenatiramya Sarartha Darshini Bhakti Shastram Athiyane Jane Drishyana Chapare." This very pleasing Sarartha Darshini, that's the name of his commentary to Bhagavatam, is very pleasing to the entire universe. It should be seen by people who are studying the Bhakti Shastras, not by others. Okay. To unfold the mystery of Bhakti Yoga, as it is explained in the previous verse, is the ultimate stage of all inquiries, or the highest objective for the inquisitive. Everyone is searching after self-realization in different ways, by Karma Yoga, by Jnana Yoga, by Dhyana Yoga, by Raja Yoga, by Bhakti Yoga, etc. To engage in self-realization is the responsibility of every living entity developed in consciousness. One who is developed in consciousness certainly makes inquiries into the mystery of the self, of the cosmic situation, and of the problems of life in all spheres and fields: social, political, economic, cultural, religious, moral, etc., and in their different branches. But here, the goal of all such inquiries is explained. The Vedanta Sutra philosophy begins with this inquiry of life. And the Bhagavatam answers such inquiries up to this point, or the mystery of all inquiries. Lord Brahma wanted to be perfectly educated by the personality of Godhead. And here is the answer by the Lord, finished in 4 nutshell verses, from Aham Eva to this verse, Etavad Deva. Etavad means up to this point. Etavad Eva. This is the end of all self-realization processes. Men do not know that the ultimate goal of life is Vishnu, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, due to being bewildered by the glaring reflection in the darkness. And as such, everyone is entering into the darkest region of material existence, driven by the uncontrolled senses. The whole material existence is sprung up because of sense gratification. Desire is based primarily on the sex desire. And the result is that, in spite of all advancement of knowledge, the final goal of all the activities of the living entities is sense gratification. But here is the real goal of life. And everyone should know it by inquiries put before a bona fide spiritual master, expert in the science of Bhakti Yoga, or from a living personality of Bhagavatam life. Everyone is engaged in various kinds of scriptural inquiries, but the Srimad Bhagavatam gives answer to all of the various students of self-realization. So everyone is engaged means everyone who is studying self-realization is engaged. This ultimate objective of life is not to be searched out without great labor or perseverance. One who is imbued with such sincere inquiries must ask the bona fide spiritual master in the disciplic succession from Brahma Ji And that is the direction given here. Because the mystery was disclosed before Brahma Ji by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the mystery of all such inquiries regarding self-realization must be put before such a spiritual master who is directly the representative of the Lord, acknowledged in that disciplic succession. Such a bona fide spiritual master is able to clear up the whole thing by evidence from the revealed scriptures, both direct and indirect. Although everyone is free to consult the revealed scriptures in this connection, one still requires the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, and that is the direction in this verse. The bona fide spiritual master is the most confidential representative of the Lord, and one must receive direction from the spiritual master in the same spirit that Brahma Ji received it from the personality of God and Lord Krishna. The bona fide spiritual master in that bona fide chain of disciplic succession never claims to be the Lord himself, although such a spiritual master is greater than the Lord in the sense that he can deliver the Lord by his personally realized experience. The Lord is not to be found simply by education or by a good fertile brain, but surely he can be found by the sincere student through the transparent medium of the bona fide spiritual master. The revealed scriptures give directions directly to this end. But because the bewildered living entities are blinded by the glaring reflection in the darkness, they are unable to find the truth of the revealed scriptures. For example, in the Bhagavad Gita, the whole direction is targeted toward the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. But for want of a bona fide spiritual master in the line of Brahmaji or the direct hearer Arjuna, there are different distortions of the revealed knowledge by many unauthorized persons who just want to satisfy their own whims. Undoubtedly, the Bhagavad Gita is accepted as one of the most brilliant stars in the horizon of the spiritual sky. Yet the interpretations of this great book of knowledge have so grossly been distorted that every student of the Bhagavad Gita is still in the same darkness of glaring material reflections. Such students are hardly enlightened by the Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita, practically the same instruction is imparted as in the 4 prime verses of the Bhagavatam, but due to wrong and fashionable interpretations by unauthorized persons, one cannot reach the ultimate conclusion. In the Bhagavad Gita 18.61, it is clearly said, Ishvaras sarvabhutanam hrideshirjuna tishtati, bhramayan sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. The Lord is situated in the hearts of all living beings as Paramatma, and He is controlling all of them in the material world under the agency of His external energy. Therefore, it is clearly mentioned that the Lord is the supreme controller and that the living entities are controlled by the Lord. In the same Bhagavad Gita 18.65, the Lord directs as follows. Manmana bhav madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. It is clear from this verse of the Bhagavad Gita that the direction of the Lord is that one should be God-minded, a devotee of the Lord, a worshipper of the Lord, and must offer all obeisances unto Lord Krishna. By so doing, the devotee will undoubtedly go back to Godhead, back to home. Indirectly, it is said that the whole Vedic social construction of human society is so made that everyone acts as a part and parcel of the complete body of the Lord. The intelligent class of men, or the Brahmanas, are situated on the face of the Lord. The administrative class of men, the Kshatriyas, are situated on the arms of the Lord. The productive class of men, the Vaishyas, are situated on the belt of the Lord. And the laborer class of men, the Shudras, are situated on the legs of the Lord. Therefore, the complete social construction is the body of the Lord. And all the parts of the body, namely the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras, are meant to serve the Lord's whole body conjointly. Otherwise, the parts become unfit to be coordinated with the supreme consciousness of oneness. Universal consciousness is actually achieved by coordinated service of all concerned to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that alone can ensure total perfection. Therefore, even the great scientists, the great philosophers, the great mental speculators, the great politicians, the great industrialists, the great social reformers, etc., cannot give any relief to the restless society of the material world because they do not know the secret of success as mentioned in this verse of the Bhagavatam, namely that one must know the mystery of Bhakti-yoga. In the Bhagavad Gita 7.15 also it is said, Mam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhama mayaya bhakrita asuram bhavamashita. Because the so-called great leaders of human society are ignorant of this great knowledge of Bhakti Yoga and are always engaged in ignoble acts of sense gratification, bewildered by the external energy of the Lord. They are stubborn rebels against the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they never agree to surrender unto him because they are fools, miscreants, and the lowest type of human beings. Such faithless non-believers may be highly educated in the material sense of the term, but actually they are the greatest fools of the world because by the influence of the external material nature, all their so-called acquisition of knowledge has been made null and void. Therefore, all advancement of knowledge in the present context of things is being misused by cats and dogs, fighting with one another for sense gratification. And all acquisition of knowledge in science, philosophy, fine arts, nationalism, economic development, religion, and great activities are being spoiled by being used as dresses for dead men. There is no utility in the dresses used for covering a coffin of a dead body, say, getting false applause from the ignorant public. The Srimad Bhagavatam therefore says again and again that without attainment of the status of Bhakti Yoga, all the activities of human society are to be considered absolute failures only. It is said, Parabhavastavad abodha jato, yavanna jigyasatha atma tattvam, yavat kriyastavad idam manovai karmatmakam yena sharira bandhaha. Bhagavatam 5.5.5. As long as one is blind to inquiring after self-realization, all material activities, however great they may be, are all different kinds of defeat because the aim of human life is not fulfilled by such unwanted and profitless activities. The function of the human body is to attain freedom from material bondage. But as long as one is fully absorbed in material activities, his mind will be overwhelmed in the whirlpool of matter. And thus he will continue to be engaged in material bodies life after life. Evam manah karma vasham prayumte avidyayatman yubadhiyamane pritirnayavan mai vasudeve namuchyate deha yogena tavat. Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.6. It is one's mind that generates different kinds of bodies for suffering different kinds of material pangs. Therefore, as long as the mind is absorbed in fruitive activities, the mind is understood to be absorbed in nescience. Thus, one is sure to be subjected to material bondage in different bodies again and again until one develops transcendental love for Godhead, Vasudeva, the Supreme Person. To become absorbed in the transcendental name, qualities, form, and activities of the Supreme Person, Vasudeva, means to change the temper of the mind from matter to absolute knowledge, which leads one to the path of absolute realization and thus frees one from the bondage of material contact and engagements in different material bodies. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada therefore comments on the words Sarvatra, Sarvada, in the sense that the principles of Bhakti Yoga or devotional service to the Lord are apt in all circumstances. That is, Bhakti Yoga is recommended in all the revealed scriptures. It is performed by all authorities. It is important in all places. It is useful in all causes and effects, etc. It means it is useful for all different purposes, whatever might be your motivation. As far as all the revealed scriptures are concerned, he quotes from the Skanda Purana on the topics of Brahma and Narada as follows. Samsaresmin mahaghore janmam mrityu samakule pujanam vasudevasya tarakam vadi vismritam. In the material world, which is full of darkness and dangers, combined with birth and death, and full of different anxieties, the only way to get out of the great entanglement is to accept loving transcendental devotional service to Lord Vasudeva. This is accepted by all classes of philosophers. Srila Jiva Goswami also quotes another common passage which is found in three Puranas, namely the Padma Purana, Skanda Purana, and Linga Purana. It runs as follows. Alodhya sarva shastrani, vicharya cha punah punah, idam ekam sunishpannam dhyeyo narayana sada. By scrutinizingly reviewing all the revealed scriptures and judging them again and again, it is now concluded that Lord Narayana is the supreme absolute truth, and thus he alone should be worshipped. The same truth is also indirectly described in the Garuda Purana as follows. Param gatopi vedanam sarvashastrartha vedyapi yona sarveshware bhaktas tam vidyat purushadhamam. Even though one may have gone to the other side of all the Vedas, and even though one is well versed in all the revealed scriptures, if one is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, he must be considered the lowest of mankind. Similarly, it is also stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.18.12 indirectly as follows. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarvair gunai satra samasate surah Arava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manorathena sati dhavato vahi. One who has unflinching devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead must have all the good qualities of the demigods. And contrarily, one who is not a devotee of the Lord must be hovering in the darkness of mental speculation, and thus must be engaged in material impermanence. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.11.18 says, Shabda Brahmana Nishnato Nishnayat Pare Yadi Shamastasya Samaphalo Kyadhenam Vivarakshataha. One may be well versed in all the transcendental literature of the Vedas, but if he fails to be acquainted with the Supreme, then it must be concluded that all of his education is like the burden of a beast, or like one's keeping a cow without milking capacity. Similarly, the liberty of discharging loving transcendental service to the Lord is invested in everyone, even the women, the Shudras, the forest tribes, or any other living beings born in sinful conditions. Te vai vidantyati taranti cha devamaya stri shudra huna shabara api papa jiva yad yad bhutta krama parayana shila shikshas tiryag jana apikim u shuta dharanaye. Bhagavatam 2.7.46. The lowest of human beings can be elevated to the highest stage of devotional life if they are trained by the bona fide spiritual master, well versed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. If the lowest can be so elevated, then what to speak of the highest, who are well versed in the Vedic knowledge? The conclusion is that devotional service to the Lord is open for all, regardless of who they are. That is the confirmation of its application for all kinds of performers of the service. Therefore, the devotional service of the Lord with perfect knowledge through the training of a bona fide spiritual master is advised for everyone, even if one happens not to be a human being. This is confirmed in the Garuda Purana as follows. Ita Pakshi Mriganam cha Parav Sanyasta Chetasam Urdhvameva Gatim Manye Kim Punar Jnaninam. Even the worms, birds, and beasts are assured of elevation to the highest perfection of highest perfection of life if they are completely surrendered to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, what to speak of the philosophers among the human beings? Therefore, there is no need to seek properly qualified candidates for discharging devotion service to the Lord. Let them be either well behaved or ill trained. Let them be either learned or fools. Let them be either grossly attached or in the renounced order of life. Let them be liberated souls or desirous of salvation. Let them be inexpert in the discharge of devotion service or expert in the same. All of them can be elevated to the supreme position by discharging devotion service under the proper guidance. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.30 and 32 as follows. Jays Bracharo, Jate Mam Ananya Bhavi, Sadhureva Samantavya, Samyak Vyavasito Hisa, Mamhi Partha Vyapashritya, Yepisyu Papa Yonaya, Striyo Vaishyas Tatha Shudras, Tepi Anti Paramgatim. Even if a person is fully addicted to all sorts of sinful acts, if he happens to be engaged in the loving transcendental service of the Lord under proper guidance, he is to be considered the most perfect holy man without a doubt. And thus, any person whatsoever and whosoever he or she may be, even the fallen woman, the less intelligent laborer, or the dull mercantile man, or even a man lower than all these, can attain the highest perfection of life by going back home, back to God, provided he or she take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in all earnestness. This sincere earnestness is the only qualification that can lead one to the highest perfection stage of life. And unless and until such a real earnestness is aroused, there is a difference between cleanliness or uncleanliness, learning or non-learning in the material estimation. Fire is always fire. And thus, if someone touches the fire knowingly or unknowingly, the fire will act in its own way without discrimination. The principle is, Harir Harati Papani, Dushtat Chittair Apismita. The all-powerful Lord can purify the devotee of all sinful reactions, just as the sun can sterilize all sorts of infections by its powerful rays. Thus, attraction for material enjoyment cannot act upon a pure devotee of the Lord. There are hundreds and thousands of aphorisms in the revealed scriptures glorifying devotional service. Devotional service. Atma Ramashchamanaya, even the self-realized souls are also attracted by the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Echit kevalaya bhaktya vasudeva parayana Simply by hearing and chanting, one becomes a great devotee of Lord Vasudeva. Na chalati bhagavat padara lavanimishardham api yassa vaishnavagriya. A person who does not move from the lotus feet of the Lord, even for a moment, is to be considered the greatest of all Vaishnavas. Bhagavat Pashadatam Prapte. This portion is Jiva Goswami, but Mat Sevaya Pratitamte. This is Bhagavatam, third canto. Kapila Dev. The pure devotees are convinced of attaining the association of the personality of Godhead, and thus they are always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, in all continents, in all planets, in all universes, devotion service to the Lord or Bhakti Yoga is current, and that is the statement of the Srimad Bhagavatam and allied scriptures. Everywhere means in every part of the creation of the Lord. The Lord can be served by all the senses or even simply by the mind. The South Indian Brahmana who served the Lord simply on the strength of his mind also factually realized the Lord. This is that Brahmana from Pratishtanapur that we came across in our Bhakti Shastri studies. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion. Success is guaranteed for a devotee who fully engages any one of his senses in the mode of devotional service. The Lord can be served by any ingredient, even the most common commodity, a flower, a leaf, a fruit, or a little water, which are available in any part of the universe and without cost. And thus, the Lord is served universally by the universal entity. He can be served simply by hearing. He can be served simply by chanting or reading about his activities. He can be served simply by adoring him and accepting him. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that one can serve the Lord by offering the result of one's own work. It does not matter what one does. Generally, men may say that whatever they are doing is inspired by God, but that is not all. One should actually work on behalf of God as a servant of God. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita 9.27, Yat karoshi yat ashnasi, yat juhosi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushvam madarpanam. Do whatever you like, or whatever may be easier for you to do. Eat whatever you may eat. Sacrifice whatever you can sacrifice. Give whatever you may give in charity, or do whatever you may undertake in penance. But everything must be done for him only. If you do business or if you accept some employment, do so on behalf of the Lord. Whatever you may eat, you may offer the same to the Lord and be assured that he will return the food after eating it himself. He is a complete whole, and therefore, whatever he may eat that is offered by the devotee is accepted because of the devotee's love. But again, it is returned as sadham for the devotee so that he can be happy by it. In other words, be a servant of God and live peacefully in that consciousness, ultimately returning home back to Godhead. It is said in the Skanda Purana, Yasya smritya cha namoktya tapo yajya kriyadishu nunam sampurnatam eti sadhyo vandetam achyutam. I offer my obeisances unto him, the infallible, because simply by either remembering him or vibrating his holy name, one can attain the perfection of all penances, sacrifices, or fruitive activities, and this process can be universally followed. It is enjoined. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10, Akamas sarvakamo va mokshakama udaradhi ivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Though a person be full of desires or have no desire, he may follow this path of infallible bhakti yoga for complete perfection. One need not be anxious to propitiate each and every demigod and goddess, because the root of all of them is the personality of Godhead. As by pouring water on the root of a tree, one serves and enlivens all the branches and leaves, so by rendering service unto the Supreme Lord, one automatically serves every god and goddess without extraneous effort. The Lord is all-pervading, and therefore service unto him is also all-pervading. This fact is corroborated in the Skanda Purana as follows. Archite Deva Deveshe Shankar Chakra Gadadhare Shankar Chakra Gadadhare Archita Sarva Devasyo Yata Sarvagato Harihi. When the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, who carries in his hands a conch shell, wheel, club, and lotus flower, is worshipped, certainly all other demigods are worshipped automatically, because Hari, the personality of Godhead, is all-pervading. Therefore, in all cases, namely nominative, objective, causative, dative, ablative, possessive, and supportive, everyone is benefited by such transcendental loving service to the Lord. This is what I mentioned in Sanskrit grammar. There are different cases or vibhaktis, different senses in which nouns are used. Basically, it means that in every possible manner, those involved in devotional service are benefited. The man who worships the Lord himself who is worshipped, the cause for which the Lord is worshipped, the source of supply, the place where such worship is done, etc. Everything is benefited by such an action. This is the point. Even during the annihilation of the material world, the process of Bhakti Yoga can be applied. Kalena Nishta Pralayevaniam. The Lord is worshipped in devastation because he protects the Vedas from being annihilated. He is worshipped in every millennium or yuga, as it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam 12.3.52. Trite yadhyayato Vishnu, tretayam yajato makhai, dvapare paricharyayam, halau tadhari kirtanat. In the Vishnu Purana, it is written, Sahanistan mahachidram, samoha sacha vibhrama, yen muhurtam kshanam vapi vasudevam nachintayet. If even for a moment, remembrance of Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is missed, that is the greatest loss, that is the greatest illusion, and that is the greatest anomaly. The Lord can be worshipped in all stages of life. For instance, even in the wombs of their mothers, Maharaj Prahlad and Maharaj Parikshit worshipped the Lord. Even in his very childhood, at the age of only 5 years, Dhruva Maharaj worshipped the Lord. Even in full youth, Maharaj Ambarish worshipped the Lord. And even at the last stage of his frustration and old age, Maharaj Dhritarashtra worshipped the Lord. Ajamil worshipped the Lord even at the point of death. And Chitraketu worshipped the Lord even in heaven and in hell. In the Narasimha Purana, it is said that as the hellish inhabitants began to chant the holy name of the Lord, they began to be elevated from hell towards heaven. Durvasa Muni has also supported this view. Muchetayan nam yudite narakopi. Simply by, that's actually a Bhagavatam verse. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, the inhabitants, I'm not sure. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, the inhabitants of hell became released from their hellish persecution. So, the conclusion of Srimad Bhagavatam, as given by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit, is Etan nirvidyamanam ichchatam akuto bhayam yoginam nripanirnitam hare namanam kirtanam. O king, it is finally decided that everyone, namely those in the renounced order of life, the mystics and the enjoyers of fruitive work, should chant the holy name of the Lord fearlessly to achieve the desired success in their pursuits. Bhagavatam 2.1.11. Similarly, as indicated indirectly in various places in revealed scriptures, 1. Even though one is well versed in all the Vedas and scriptures, if one is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, he is considered to be the lowest of mankind. 2. In the Garuda Purana, 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 Padma Purana, the same is repeated. What is the use of Vedic knowledge and penances for one who is devoid of devotion service to the Lord? 3. What is the comparison of thousands of Prajapatis to one devotee of the Lord? 4. Shukadeva Goswami said, 2.4.17, that neither the ascetic nor one who is greatly beneficent, nor one who is famous, nor the great philosopher, nor the great occultist, nor anyone else can achieve the desired result without being engaged in the service of the Lord. 5. Even if a place is more glorious than heaven, if there is no glorification of the Lord of Vaikuntha or his pure devotee, it should at once be quitted. 6. The pure devotee refuses to accept all the 5 different types of liberation in order to be engaged in the service of the Lord. The final conclusion, therefore, is that the glories of the Lord must be always and everywhere proclaimed. One should hear about his glories. One should chant about his glories. And one should always remember his glories because that is the highest perfectional stage of life. As far as fruitive work is concerned, it is limited to an enjoyable body. As far as yoga is concerned, it is limited to the acquirement of mystic power. As far as empiric philosophy is concerned, it is limited to the attainment of transcendental knowledge. And as far as transcendental knowledge is concerned, it is limited to attainment of salvation. Even if they are adopted, there is every chance of discrepancies in discharging the particular type of functions. But adoption of the transcendental devotion service of the Lord has no limit, nor is there fear of falling down. The process automatically reaches the final stage by the grace of the Lord. In the preliminary stage of devotion service, there is an apparent requisite for knowledge, but in the higher stage, there is no necessity for such knowledge. The best and guaranteed path of progress is therefore engagement in Bhakti Yoga, pure devotional service. The theme of Srimad Bhagavatam in the foregoing four shlokas is sometimes squeezed out by the impersonalists for different interpretations in their favor. But it should be carefully noted that the four shlokas were first spoken by the personality of Godhead himself. And thus the impersonalist has no scope for entering into them because he has no conception of the personality of Godhead. Therefore, the impersonalist may squeeze out any interpretations from them. But such interpretations will never be accepted by those who are taught in the disciplic succession from Brahma, as will be cleared up in the following verses. Besides that, the Shruti confirms that the supreme truth, absolute personality of Godhead, never reveals himself to anyone who is falsely proud of his academic knowledge. The Shruti mantra clearly says, Katha Upanishad 1.2.23, Ayam Atma Pravachanena Labhyo, Nam Medhaya Nam Bahuna Shrutena, Yam Me Vaisha Vrinate Tena Labhyas, Tasyaisha Atma Vivrinate Tanam Swam. The whole matter is explained by the Lord himself. And one who has no approach to the Lord in his personal feature can rarely understand the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam without being taught by the Bhagavatas in the disciplic succession. Book 37. Etanmatam Samatishta Paramena Samadhina Bhavan Kalpa Vikalpeshu Na Vimuhyati Karhichit. O Brahma, just follow this conclusion by fixed concentration of mind, and no pride will disturb you, neither in the partial nor in the final devastation. So this is regarding Brahma's prayer that may not become proud when I engage in creation. Be fixed, be properly fixed in this teaching of mine with the focus of your mind. And you will not be bewildered, which means you will not become obsessed with the thought that you are the sole responsible agent for the success of your endeavors. तदेवं श्री भागवतम संक्षेपेण उपदेक्ष्यन्तं श्री नारदं श्री ब्रह्मा अपि तथैव संकल्पं कारितवान्. So, because Brahma is fixed in this conclusion, therefore he made Sri Narada also accept the same understanding. For instance, 2.7.52, he says you should, after he explained the teachings of Bhagavatam in summary, he told him that you should also present this Bhagavatam in such a manner that people take to Hari Bhakti. And in Narada also, while He wanted this great Purana to be revealed to the world. He also instructed Vyasadeva. 1.5.13, same teaching. And you should teach this Bhagavatam in such a manner that you should write this Bhagavatam in such a manner that people will take to unalloyed devotion service to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Krishna Chakravarti Thakur. अति गंभीरार्थम चतुश्लोकी भागवतम इदम कथम मया अवगंतुम शक्यम वैवध्यमानानां मत वैवध्यात् वैवध्यमान विबोधमानानाम् इत्यतः. But there are so many people with so many opinions and they keep disputing about it all the time. How should I understand this most grave Chatushloki Bhagavata? Anticipating this question, the Lord speaks this current verse. Etan matam madhiyam samyak ganadishtha samadhana chitta ekagrena vimrisha. Contemplate on this with the focus of mind, and then you will not be bewildered. So I thought there was a question here. Okay.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
In the previous sloka, it is written one can release from the hell by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Is there any reference for that?
Yeah, that reference from Narasimha Purana was given. No?
Means any devotee who did like that, any pastime is there?
You have to look up in Narasimha Purana to find out that. In other places also maybe there. There was something I had read about Uparichara Vasu reciting Harinam, and then residents from hell, they became delivered. Where it is, I'm not able to, it's not coming to my mind right now. But there are, it is not unknown.
But are we going to get the opportunity to take the devotional service even in hell also?
If it is given, it is not natural. But if it is given,
to whom it is given?
If it is given to those residents of hell, then it will be possible for them. Otherwise, no.
Just like we also hear that Narada Muni also goes to hell and
preach. Yeah, if he chooses to go, if the great devotees, they decide to go and deliver them, and if they accept, then it will work.
Okay.
As in the Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter, where the personality of Godhead Lord Krishna has summarized the whole text in 4 verses, namely, Ham Sarvasya Prabhava, etc. So the complete Srimad Bhagavatam has also been summarized in 4 verses as Aham Evasam Evagre, etc. Thus, the secret purpose of the most important Bhagavatai conclusion has been explained by the original speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam, who was also the original speaker of the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead Lord Sri Krishna. There are many grammarians and non-devotee material wranglers who have tried to present false interpretations of these 4 verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, but the Lord himself advised Brahmaji not to be deviated from the fixed conclusion the Lord had taught him. The Lord was the teacher of the nucleus of Srimad Bhagavatam in 4 verses, and Brahma was the receiver of the knowledge. Misinterpretation of the word aham by the word jugglery of the impersonalists should not disturb the minds of the strict followers of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is a text of the personality of Godhead and its unalloyed devotees, who are also known as the Bhagavatas, and no outsider can have any access to this confidential literature of devotional service. But unfortunately, the impersonalist, who has no relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sometimes tries to interpret Srimad Bhagavatam, but dint of his poor fund of knowledge in grammar and dry speculation. This person, what's his name? Vamshidhara. He wrote a sub-commentary on Sridhar Swami is an impersonalist actually. And he has his own opinion. He has so many things to say. This is only a small part, but so many things to say. He has commented on, he has presented 100 explanations to the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam uh, with all kinds of funny things, like as if Vyasadeva is praying to Shiva, Durga, uh, this demigod, that demigod, this thing, that thing, all kinds of things. Whereas the simple teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam is clear focus on Krishna, Vishnu, devotional service to him as being beyond the highest form of liberation. Then they miss it out. They miss it out. Mukhyanti yat surayaha. Therefore, the Lord wants Brahma, and through Brahma, all future devotees of the Lord in the disciplic succession of Brahma, that one should never be misled by the conclusion of the so-called grammarians or by other men with a poor want of knowledge, must always fix the mind properly via the parampara system. Parampara system. The parampara system means, Prabhupada gives this example. Krishna speaks Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So you try to understand Bhagavad Gita the way Arjuna understood Bhagavad Gita. You don't try to uh, directly understand Bhagavad Gita. You don't come up with a fresh, new perspective. You don't do all these things. You just understand how Arjuna understood it, and you assert that Arjuna's understanding of Bhagavad Gita is the right understanding, and any understanding that is contrary to that is a wrong understanding. That is the parampara system. That Prabhupada applies everywhere, for Bhagavatam also, for Chaitanya Charitamrita also. It is Chaitanya Charitamrita that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ends every chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita by saying, Rupa Raghunatha Pade. There's a verse which basically says that that person who, I, Krishnadas Kaviraj, am fixed at the lotus feet of Rupa Raghunath, and I describe this Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, Prabhupada says, so Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is only interested in understanding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as it has been understood and explained by Rupa Raghunath. Rupa Raghunath means the 6 Goswamis, from Rupa Goswami to Raghunathas Goswami. Their understanding of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is what I am interested in presenting. I have no interest in my own independent, fresh understanding of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There is no fresh understanding of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You cannot understand. That is the entire concept behind the parampara system. You need to surrender your intellect to those who are who have spotless experience and realization of the absolute truth. No one should try to give a new interpretation by dint of mundane knowledge. The first step, therefore, in pursuance of the system of knowledge received by Brahma is to approach a bona fide guru who is a representative of the Lord, following the parampara system. How Arjuna understood how Arjuna understood it can be understood from Arjuna's prayers to Bhagavad Gita. If you examine his prayers, you'll see. This is all Bhagavad Gita introduction analysis. If you do that, you'll understand. No one should try to squeeze out his own meaning by imperfect mundane knowledge. The guru or the bona fide spiritual master is competent to teach the disciple in the right path with reference to the context of all authentic Vedic literature. It does not attempt to juggle words to bewilder the student. The bona fide spiritual master, by his personal activities, teaches the disciple the principles of devotional service. Without personal service, one would go on speculating like the impersonalists and tri-speculators life after life, and would be unable to reach the final conclusion. By following the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master in conjunction with the principles of revealed scriptures, the student will rise to the plane of complete knowledge, which will be exhibited by development of detachment from the world of sense gratification. The mundane wranglers are surprised that one can detach himself from the world of sense gratification, and thus any attempt to be fixed in God realization appears to them to be mysticism. This detachment from the sensory world is called the Brahmabhuta stage of realization. The preliminary stage of what is this? This is not given by Prabhupada. The preliminary stage of transcendental devotional life, Parabhakti, the Brahmabhuta stage of life, is also known as the Atmarama stage, in which one is fully self-satisfied and does not hanker for the world of sense enjoyment. This stage of full satisfaction is the proper situation for understanding the transcendental knowledge of the personality of Godhead. The Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.20 affirms this. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Thus, in the completely satisfied stage of life, exhibited by full detachment from the world of sense enjoyment as a result of performing devotional service, one can understand the signs of God in the liberated stage. In this stage of full satisfaction and detachment from the sensory world, one can know the mystery of the signs of God with all its confidential intricacies and not by grammar or academic speculation. Because Brahma qualified himself for such reception, the Lord was pleased to disclose the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam. This direct instruction by the Lord to any devotee who is detached from the world of sense gratification is possible, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10.10. Yesham satati yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yenamam upayanti te. Unto the devotees who are constantly engaged in the Lord's transcendental loving service, pritipurvakam, the Lord, out of his causeless mercy upon the devotee, gives direct instructions so that the devotee may make accurate progress on the path, returning home back to Godhead. One should not, therefore, try to understand these 4 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam by mental speculation. Rather, by direct perception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is able to know all about his abode Vaikuntha, as was seen and experienced by Brahmaji. Such Vaikuntha realization is possible by any devotee of the Lord situated in the transcendental position as a result of devotion service. In the Gopaltapani Upanishad Shruti, it is said, Gopavesho me Purushah Purastad Avir Babhuva. The Lord appeared before Brahma as a cowherd boy, that is, as the original personality of God, Lord Sri Krishna Govinda, who is later described by Brahmaji in his Brahma Samhita 5.29. Chintamani Prakarasadmasakalpa Vrikshalakchavateshu Surabhirabhipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasrashata Sambrahmasevyamanam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Brahmaji desires to worship the original personality of God, Lord Sri Krishna, who resides in the topmost Vaikuntha planet, known as Goloka Vrindavan, where he is in the habit of keeping Surabhi cows as a cowherd boy, and where he is served by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune, the gopis, with love and respect. Therefore, Lord Sri Krishna is the original form of the Supreme Lord, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. This is also clear from the instruction Lord Krishna gives in verses 33 to 36 of this chapter. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Lord Krishna, and not directly Narayana or the Purushavatas, which are subsequent manifestations. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam means consciousness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. And Srimad Bhagavatam is a sound representation of the Lord as much as the Bhagavad Gita is. Thus, the conclusion is that Srimad Bhagavatam is the science of the Lord, in which the Lord and his abode are perfectly realized. How to advance in devotion service. How to advance in devotion service. The individual devotee should, in the association of more advanced devotees, should engage, should do all the things that he is meant to do, should avoid all the things that he is meant to avoid. He should follow the principles of sadhana bhakti, specifically the first 20 and the last 5. One should inquire from the spiritual master. It is mentioned. What is that? He should inquire. What is there? He should inquire from his spiritual master on how to make progress in his individual life. That's the way. Text 38. Shri Shukrovacha. Sampradish ajano jananam parameshtinam Pashyatastasya tadrupam atmano nyarunadharihi. Sukadeva Goswami said to Maharaj Parikshit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, after being seen in his transcendental form, instructing Brahmaji, the leader of the living entities, disappeared. Evam sampradishya upadishya jananam parameshtinam parame adhipatti sthitam brahmana. Here, Brahma refers to the supreme leader, the one who has been placed above all the other living beings. Atmanastadrupam nyarunad antarhitavan. He removed his form from the vision of all of these, from Brahma. Atmano rupam nyarunad ityanena vaikunthadikam api swarupatvena eva angikritam. When it says that he uh, covered up his form, or he made his form invisible, that includes the spiritual abode Sri Vaikuntha, which the Lord showed, Vaikuntha, etc., which he showed to Lord Brahma. So it is understood that Vaikuntha and all these other features, they are also part and parcel of his form. They are also included in his form. In this verse, it is clearly mentioned that the Lord is Ajanaha, or the Supreme Person. Literally, it means the unborn. And that he is showing his transcendental form, Atmano Rupam, to Brahmaji while instructing him in the summarization of Srimad Bhagavatam in 4 verses. He is Ajanaha, or the Supreme Person, among Jananam, of all persons. All living entities are individual persons. And among all such persons, Lord Hari is supreme, as confirmed in the Shruti mantra. Nityo Nityanam, Chetanash Chetananam, Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. So there's no place for impersonal features in the transcendental world as there are impersonal features in the material world. Wherever there is Chetana or knowledge, the personal feature comes in. In the spiritual world, everything is full of knowledge. And therefore, everything there is personal. Nothing is impersonal. The land, the water, the trees, the mountains, the rivers, the men, the animals, the birds, all are of the same quality, namely Chetana. And therefore, everything in the transcendental world is individual and personal. Srimad Bhagavatam gives us this information as a supreme Vedic literature, and it was personally instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to Brahmaji, so that the leader of the living entities might broadcast the message to all in the universe in order to teach the supreme knowledge of Bhakti Yoga. Brahmaji, in his turn, taught Narada, his beloved son, the same message of Srimad Bhagavatam, and Narada, in his turn, taught the same to Vyasadeva, who again taught it to Shukadeva Goswami. Through Shukadeva Goswami's grace, and by the mercy of Maharaj Parikshit, we are all given Srimad Bhagavatam perpetually to learn the science of the absolute personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Then, text 13.9. Antarhitendriyarthaya haraye vihitanjalihi sarvabhutamayo vishvam sasarjedam sapurvavat. On the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of devotees, Brahma, with folded hands, began to recreate the universe full with living entities as it was previously. Antarhita Indriyartha Pratyaksha Rupam Yena Tasme Vatanjali San. Antarhita Indriyanam Chakshurādīnām Arthaha Parama Purushartha Swarupa Swasya Prakasha Yena Tasmai. He is the ultimate goal to be seen with all the senses. Swabhakta Chakshurādīnām Arthaha Parama Purushartha Swasaundarya Saurabhyādikaha Yena Tasmai. He is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of his devotees. The object of transcendental enjoyment refers to him being the supreme um, purushartha, the supreme goal, because of his beauty, his fragrance, and so on. Purvavat. Purvapurvasmin vyatite kalpe ityarthaha. As it was previously means, as it was created in the previous kalpas, in the previous day of Brahma. Tena Brahmanaha स्वकन्या अभिगमरूपः मोहः पूर्वकल्पे तत्रैव अभूत् न तु चतुश्लोकी भागवत उपदेशान्तरमपि. So Brahma's approaching his own daughter, that delusion came about in the previous kalpa, not after hearing Chatushloki Bhagavat. Bhavan kalpa vikalpeshu na vimuhyati iti bhagavadukte, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead had proclaimed that he had told Lord Brahma, your grace will not be bewildered in the future kalpas, and so on. Yattu Krishnavatare Brahma Mohanam, Tattu Bhagavat Kripa Vilasitam Evage. That bewilderment of Brahma during Lord Krishna's descent as Krishna, that is simply a sportive manifestation of the Supreme Lord's mercy upon him. That should be understood. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari is the object of fulfilling the senses of all living entities, illusioned by the glaring reflection of the external energy. The living entities worship the senses instead of engaging them properly and fulfilling the desires of the Lord. In the Haribhakti Sudhodaya, there is the following verse. Akshna phalam tvadrasha darshanam hi, Hana phalam tvadrasha gatra sangha, Jihva phalam tvadrasha kirtanam hi, Durlabha bhagavatahi loke. For devotee of the Lord, the purpose of the visual sense is fulfilled simply by touching you. And to touch your body is a fulfillment of bodily touch. The tongue is meant for glorifying your qualities, because in this world, the pure devotee of the Lord is very difficult to find. Originally, the senses of the living entity were awarded for this purpose, namely, to engage them in the transcendental loving service of the Lord or that of his devotees. But the conditioned souls, illusioned by the material energy, became captivated by sense enjoyment. Therefore, the whole process of God consciousness is meant to rectify the conditional activities of the senses and to re-engage them in the direct service of the Lord. For Brahma, thus engaging his service, his senses in the service of the Lord by recreating the conditioned living entities, and thus engaged his senses in the service of the Lord by recreating the conditioned living entities to act in the recreated universe. This material universe is thus created and annihilated by the will of the Lord. It is created to give the conditioned souls a chance to act, to return home back to Godhead. And servants like Brahmaji, Naradaji, Vyasaji, and their company become busy with the same purpose of the Lord, to reclaim the conditioned souls from the field of sense gratification and return them to the normal stage of engaging the senses in the service of the Lord. So now when we use our senses to serve the Lord, we do that by surrendering unto a representative devotee of the Lord. And therefore, our senses are used in the service of the transparent via media, who is himself demonstrating how to serve Krishna. But the impersonalists, instead of doing so, that is, converting their actions of the senses, try to make the conditioned souls senseless. And the Lord also senseless. That is improper treatment for the conditioned souls. The diseased condition of the senses may be treated by curing the defect, not by uprooting the senses altogether. When there is some disease in the eyes may be cured to see properly. Plucking out the eyes is no treatment. Similarly, the whole material disease is based on the process of sense gratification, and liberation from the diseased condition is a re-engagement of the senses to see the beauty of the Lord, hear his glories, and act on his account. And thus Brahmaji created the universal activities again. I just need to check one thing. This Chatushloki portion has received a lot of attention from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his edition. He has paid special attention to the first three verses of Bhagavatam, but he's also given sufficient attention to this. He has provided special notes on these four verses. He has quoted from Vidvan, Bhagavatarka Marichimala, Bhaktivinod's commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita. This brought out Vishwanath Chakravarti. Yes, brought out. He would have brought out Jiva Goswami also. Krishna's Kaviraj, Shri Jiva Goswami, Sridhar Swami, Madhvacharya, Vijayadhvaja Tirtha, Veera Raghava of the Ramanuja group, Siddhanta Pradeep of the Nimbarka group, Vallabhacharya, and his own Vivriti, his own explanation. He has done this for all the verses. Yes, very well. From this text 30, that means the verse before Yavanaham Yatha Bhava. Very extensive presentation. Very, very good. All of this should be converted into different languages. Sarvabhutamaya. In the last verse that we discussed, Brahma is described as Sarvabhutamaya, which indicates that all the living entities were in him, in his feature as Hiranyagarbha. He's referring to a commentary known as Bala Prabodhini for that. That's a question in the chat box. Worshipping sacred trees like the banyan tree, how to do it? Is it mandatory? One should not be neglectful in ordinary dealings. Please explain it. Dance before the deity, any standard process. For 1 and 2, you should examine Bhaktivinoda Thakur's explanation in Bhaktya under Sadhu Vritti, the chapter Sadhu Vritti, where he has nicely explained these two, what the significance of these two. Then dance before the deity, any standard. Prabhupada taught how to dance. You dance gracefully. That's all. We don't start micromanaging people about all this. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll close up. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमः।